It is about to get real during week 3 of the college football season. A lot of storylines to track, a lot of upsets that may or may not be happening. We're going to talk about all of it on this episode of The Hard Count. It is Thursday, September 12th, 2024, the last one on the face of the planet. We got a lot happening right now. I just spoke about it getting real. You know what else is getting real? The Pac-12 is starting to resurrect itself. There was a minute there where it's like Washington State, Oregon State, out there on an island just trying to survive. As of this morning, some news breaking, 4 new additions to the Pac-12. Now, if y'all watch this show, if you know me, I'm not a big fan of realignment. Why? Because it's not actually college football and the games and the scheme and just all those things that we love about the sport. However, the fact that my little girl is going to grow up in a world where Pac-12 After Dark is how we end our college football Saturdays, I cannot be more stoked. Portal Pete Nakos, Pac-12 Pete Nakos, joining the show in just a little bit to break down the latest there. As always, every single Thursday during the college football season, we take a little gauge for where the upset meter may be tracking across the college football landscape. I got 4 games that I'm specifically keeping an eye on, so that'll be a lot of fun. We'll break that down in a minute here. Tennessee, I don't want to overreact. We do our very best to keep a level head throughout the college football season, keep a level head with a nice little dose of passion and juice mixed in there, but like they look like a playoff team to me. They do. It's early in the year, but I want us to just have a full-on conversation around Tennessee and why I think they are still looking like a playoff team because, again, they were a preseason prediction for us to be in that final field of 12. So we'll unpack that together. Also, Florida, The vibes have not been immaculate in Gainesville over the course of the last couple of weeks. I want us to just have a discourse, if you will, around the gravity for Florida, their game this weekend against Texas A&M. I'm not calling for Billy Napier's job, but I do think it's appropriate for us to understand all that hangs in the balance in Florida's game against the Aggies in the Swamp. All of that, and then at the end of this thing, of course, we have our final thoughts for you. We're going to talk a little Colorado State at the end of this thing as well, give you our pick in that game. Right now, Colorado is favored by right around a touchdown, so we'll talk about that. But we're glad to have y'all here, man. Make sure you're subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel. It's college football season. Want all of you college football sickos dialed in with us, okay? This show is on 3 times a week. We got content for you every single day right here on the On3 YouTube channel. It's college football, nothing but college football, and it's not like this clickbait, kind of content that you see nowadays. It's not this thing where we're just trafficking and getting traffic. Like, this is college football sickos behind the mic. This is college football sickos behind the camera. This is college football sickos that are subscribed to this show and to the podcast platforms as well. Just type in The Hard Count with JD Pickell. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us on there. So we appreciate you for that. All right, let's jump right into it, man. Upset. Who's on the watch this week? Week 3 has got, I think, a pretty heavy slate. Now, last week, hand up, fell asleep at the wheel a little bit. I told you, hey, I don't know if we're going to see many upsets this week, and then we had a few that almost popped in a big way, one that popped in a massive way with NIU and Notre Dame. We're back dialed in now, okay? We took a little bit of a slow start now, but I'm watching Memphis at Florida State very, very closely. We already gave you our prediction in that game. I think Florida State still wins. I think the bye week gets them back right. But, y'all, if Florida State's defensive line does not pack a lunch and start to look like what we have expected them to look like against Memphis, just because that logo doesn't have a Power 4 conference behind it as of right now, does not mean that they will not get beat. All right, Memphis right now averaging 200 yards on the ground. Mario Anderson is one of the best running backs in college football that nobody's talking about. Florida State's averaging, giving up right around 200 yards on the ground. So, if we don't see some real, come-to-Jesus kind of moments from this defense, they're going to leave with an L. All right, that cannot be the case for Mike Norvell when the expectations were going into the season that they would be a college football playoff team, an ACC title contending team. I'm not telling you his job's in jeopardy, but I'm saying, that cannot be the reality you find yourself in week 3 of the college football season. Now, speaking of Florida State and the upset that they had to endure early on in the year, how about Boston College going to Missouri? Missouri's a 16.5-point favorite. Thomas Castellanos, if I'm a Missouri fan, does not give me much sleep at night, quite frankly. What he did to that Florida State defense, just absolutely carving them up. Missouri now replacing their defensive coordinator, replacing a lot of production on defense. If Missouri doesn't bring the level of intensity they need to bring in that game, because remember now, Missouri haven't really played anybody just yet. It's no knock on Eli Drinkwitz or Brady Cook, but I'll just say this. I think you're going to have to play really assignment-sound football with all the things that Boston College does, especially when the play breaks down. So keep an eye on that one. I would not be surprised if you're watching that game and you get or maybe not even watching that game. Maybe you're watching another game. You're watching the ticker. You say, hang on a second. Boston College is up by 3 in the third quarter. Thomas Castellanos has how many yards rushing? What is going on with Missouri's on upset alert? It could be one of those conversations if Missouri is not careful. All right, now Tulane at Oklahoma is the one that I am circling, underlining, highlighting, starring with red ink. Tulane just pushed Kansas State, one of what I believe to be the better teams in the Big 12, at least a top 3 team in that conference. We'll see how that shakes out. Just pushed them to a 1-touchdown game. All right, now Tulane, in a lot of ways, I thought should have won that game. Oklahoma, they kind of stumbled through a game against Houston. We've said it a lot during the preseason. I'll say it again right now. I need to see something on the offensive line for Oklahoma. Because as good as you think Jackson Arnold's going to be, and I'm right there in that camp with you, I think the dude has a ton of talent. He was a 5-star for a reason. If you can't protect him, we don't ever get to see if he is that 5-star. We never actually get a gauge for what his ability is. So Tulane, I think they're going to score. My question is, can the Oklahoma offense find some rhythm? If they can, then they'll cover that 13.5. If they can't, same thing we said about Missouri and Boston College. You'll be watching another game. You'll get a game break from Matt Barry, and it's like, hey, Tulane now up a touchdown on Oklahoma in the fourth quarter. Could the Sooners go down at home? I'm just saying. That's one of the games that I am watching very closely. We do our own betting content on my Instagram page at JD Piquel. Keep an eye on that one. I'd be surprised if that doesn't make our Against the Suits on my Instagram platform tomorrow is one of the best bets. So keep an eye on that. Last one here. Oregon at Oregon State. We're about to talk about the Pac-12 in a matter of moments, but like if Oregon plays the way they played the first 2 weeks, they're going to get beat. And it's tough to pinpoint exactly what it is with Oregon because 1 week it's the defensive execution. The week before it's the offensive line. And like you're trying to get a gauge exactly what the problem is at Oregon. I said this before. I don't think they have problems as much as I think they have issues they can work through. But still, with that being said, man, Jam Griffin, running back for Oregon State, he is a dude. He will get north-south on that Oregon defense if they do not play fundamentally assignment sound, all those things. You want to have a situation where you get out of the gap like Ashton Genty took advantage of from Boise State. Same thing will happen if you don't play assignment and gap sound against that rushing attack of Oregon State. So all that's to say, rivalry game, throw logic out the window. This one's in Corvallis. Oregon favored by 16.5. I don't feel great about Oregon right now. I'm not selling my stock, but I don't have as much confidence as I had before. So keep an eye on that game. That'll be a fun one. And I think for the most part, man, this is one of those weeks now where you don't have all the major top 10, top 5 matchups. It's always the quiet ones, all right? So we're not predicting these upsets necessarily, but these are the ones to keep an eye on when you're looking for the upsets in week 3 of the college football season, all right? Now, speaking of upsets, man, I think Pac-12 just upset humanity because there's a lot of folks now when Oregon State and Washington State were the last 2 on that island, the last 2 on that life raft, just drifting out to sea when everything dispersed. I thought that was it. There was a small part of you, too, that maybe felt a little, I'll say it, little depressed, a little minor depression, knowing that Pac-12 After Dark was kind of a thing of the past. Well, as of this morning, the Pac-12 reaching their hand out of the grave, and they have added Colorado State, Fresno State, Boise State, and San Diego State. The 2-pack is now the 6-pack, all right? So how did this all happen? What's next? Why now? To break it all down, man, you know him as Portal Pete Nakos, pretty much does everything for us here at On 3. He's Pac-12 Pete Nakos today. Pete, 1, what's up, brother? So dope to have you in studio and not on the monitor right here. 2, what is going on? How did this happen?
What's going on, man? So news broke last night, right? Yesterday was a big day of board meetings for those Pac-2 schools, Oregon State and Washington State, and then obviously Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Fresno State, all kind of coming together, trying to pound this thing out. News broke last night. It's official. Broke at 9 a.m. Eastern time today, and Washington State and Oregon State had that scheduling partnership with the Mountain West, and now we kind of see that crumble apart, and instead it's the Pac-12 going back, taking arguably the top 4 schools in the Mountain West, bringing them over to the Pac-12, and we're going to get into this more, but creating one of the more interesting, college football conferences right now.
And so the beautiful part about you being in Nashville is like this breaks this morning.
Yep.
I get to walk over to your desk and say, dude, you want to jump on the show? And you're like, yeah, of course, let's do it. And the first question is like, well, hey, you got 6.
Right.
Probably don't stop at 6. I don't know if you can stop at 6 and have a conference. I say that, and they have a 2-team conference right now, so I mean, like, more power to them. I'm looking at the ACC. And you're like, looks a little Jenga towery, all right? I mean, you pull one block out, and that whole thing kind of crumbles a little bit.
Yeah.
Is that where you should look right now if you're talking about teams to add to the Pac-6, the 6-pack right now?
So let's break it down a little bit. So you now have 6 teams. The 4 teams will join in July 2026, so there'll be another year of the Pac-2. Okay. As part of this, the NCAA has a rule that you need to have at least 8 teams to be an FBS Division I school. Okay, so the NCAA gave the Pac-2 a 2-year grace period that obviously ends in the 2026-27 year, just as those 4 schools join. Now you need 2 more. So where do you turn? So the ACC is interesting, right? A little wobbly right now with these Florida State, Clemson legal disputes. We don't have any inside info there, but the one thing to keep an eye on, right, is Cal and Stanford left the Pac-12 last September for the ACC, and now the attention turns, okay, there's a year for this thing to come together, right, before they need those 2 more teams. Do Cal and Stanford come home to the Pac-12? And while my Twitter mentions are blowing up right now about this, I will say that it makes a lot of sense on paper. Athletes would prefer to stay closer to campus rather than seeing their athletic schedules taking them across the country. So that's something that really needs to be monitored. If that is to happen, though, it also means that some movement's going to happen on that Clemson, Florida State legal side.
How difficult is that? Because, like, I'm just thinking about this from a relational standpoint. It's like, hey, you broke up with us, you went to the ACC, and then you come right back to us once the ACC looks a little bit wobbly. Like, am I stretching in the sense that, like, there could be some relational damage there for the people having that conversation when it comes to, like, Stanford and Cal and all that?
We're going to get into it more, and there's some other schools to watch. I just think, though, that those are 2 really big brands that if they're on the table, I'm not exactly sure if the Pac-12 can pass on. They open up the Bay Area. They open up more of Southern California. Those are major television markets. And it's not a shot at any of these other group of 5 teams.
Sure.
But Cal and Stanford are very well-established brands that only elevate the Pac-12.
And you actually have an article out right now on all3.com, so y'all go check that out. Pete has a ton of great work on all3.com on the written side of things, as well as jumping on the hard count whenever he has time. You mentioned a couple other schools, Memphis, Tulane in the mix. Are those schools to watch as well, or who else maybe outside of the ACC is maybe a potential addition to this new 6-pack?
So the 3 American Athletic Conference schools that we have our eye on are Memphis, Tulane, and UTSA. Those are all in the Central Time Zone, okay, right? The Pac-12, even though with these additions they don't have any schools in the Central Time Zone, that's appealing when you look at it from a television standpoint, and that's what a lot of this really boils down to. Memphis is obviously offers a lot when it comes to football and basketball. They also have the resources, right? We saw that $25 million commitment from FedEx when it comes to NIL. So Memphis is there. Tulane has really emerged as one of the top group of 5 football programs in recent years. And then you look at UTSA. In San Antonio opens up the Texas market, which the Pac-12 does not have right now. That is extremely valuable. And then you look at what Jeff Traylor's done there too. That can't be undersold. So those are the 3 American Athletic Conference schools I'm looking at. There's a few more though. I think that we're going to dive into now too.
And there's always 2 sides to a breakup, right?
Yeah.
Like we saw when Texas and OU left the SEC, the Big 12 kind of had to figure out what they were doing next. Now with the Mountain West losing some key additions, like there's. The Pac-12 is celebrating today, but there's probably some folks in Mountain West country that are like, okay, what do we do now? Because now we need to find a way to probably add some teams as well. What happens there?
So the Pac-12 isn't done, right? So if the American athletic schools don't work out, if they can't get Cal and Stanford, then they pivot their attention to the Mountain West. And teams to keep an eye on there to make the jump to the Pac-12, that's going to be Air Force, right? That opens up Denver. You look at a Wyoming, UNLV, that's Las Vegas. And then the other school to kind of keep an eye on is New Mexico. That kind of rounds out the schools that we're keeping an eye on. this is all prediction time now, right?
Sure,
These are
yeah,
all hypotheticals. But
I love it.
If the Pac-12 does dip back into the Mountain West and it kind of leaves the Mountain West hurting, or if we see the American Athletic down some, I think there's going to be a national conversation that goes on of, do the American Athletic and Mountain West try to come together with some sort of a partnership it's only going to strengthen them. It'd be a more appealing television contract for someone. So those are kind of what we're looking at right now. But, man, today is all about the Pac-12.
Mm-hmm.
And Pac-12 is back. And,
Pac-12 is back.
It was only fitting that news broke last night after dark.
Man, see, that's what people didn't even put their finger on. It's like, hey, after dark, when everyone's gone to bed, much like those games that we have enjoyed for the better part of the last, I don't know how many years, news breaks. That's big time. Now, you and I talked about this before we got on the air here. Like, I think there's a lot of feelings around how you would view this new Pac-12. Because before it was like, oh, yeah, Power 5, Pac-12. I mean, Oregon and USC. And, like, now it's doesn't have quite as much shine, no knock on the Pac-12. Feels like maybe the sequel to the Mountain West, and good for the Pac-12 for being able to sustain themselves. Do we still view the Pac-12 as like a power conference? It'd be hard for me to do that. What about you?
I view the Pac-12 now as a group of 6, right? We had the group of 5. It's going to become the group of 6. The Pac-12 had that opportunity to kind of partner with Mountain West. Everything I have been told is maybe the Mountain West had a lot of leverage, but it just didn't really go. The pressure they put on the Pac-12 was not well received, and that kind of puts the Pac-12 where it is now. The other thing, though, that you have to look at when you look at the Pac-12, talking to some sources, they evaluated their brand, their resources. What the Pac-12 has to offer right now is arguably still trying to get in that Power 4 level, right? They already have some studios so they can broadcast games. The brand recognition, right? We know the Pac-12 a lot better than the Mountain West, right, when you mentioned names of conferences. So that won the day. That's kind of why the Pac-12 made the decision to really get aggressive when it came to realignment, and that's kind of where we ended up as of right now.
Last thing for you here, Pete. Everyone now is looking at the college football playoff and auto bids and all that. And at first I was like, oh, this could actually maybe spice that up a little bit because of what we just said with how you view the Pac-12. And then I kind of settled in and I was like, well, actually, unless they change the structure, unless they change who gets an auto bid, which could obviously be on the horizon, things kind of stay the same. Like top five conference champs get a seat at the table.
Yeah, things aren't really going to change right now. You get the Pac-2 moving forward; those are viewed as independents right now. When it does get to the Pac-6, the Pac-12, whatever you want to call it, I think they'll be more recognized as a group of 6 school rather than Power 4 school. The one other thing that's going to kind of be worked out in the future, we don't have the answer for right now, right? That 26-27 year is when the new college football playoff media contract starts. In terms of monies, like, does the Pac-12 have the opportunity to go back to the table and renegotiate with like 6 to 8 schools and get some more money paid out to them? That is going to have to be worked out in the future.
A lot of buzz around that 14.
Yeah.
A lot of buzz around Madden, a couple teams, and then I'm just riffing here. Feels like if I'm the SEC and the Big Ten, I don't allow other conferences to have more auto bids. And I don't know if there's like any intel on that, but I'm like, hey, if anything, we're going to take some more bids for our conference.
Right. So you look at the current model. This is year 1 of the 12-team college football playoff. So there's 5 automatic bids, right, for the 5 highest conference champions. Then you have the 4 who get the first-round buys. I don't really see that changing. All the other conferences don't want automatic qualifiers for the Big Ten and SEC, right? Obviously, the Big Ten and SEC would like that, but I think there's going to be a lot of pushback on that. So we'll have to see how things work out. If anything, though, for the group of 5 and now group of 6, it just means more competition to get that that spot for the group of 6 conference champion.
Dude, wild times.
Yeah.
Wild times in college football. Dude, I'm so glad you're in Nashville so we can do segments like this. I don't have to blow you up when you're in Ohio and be like, hey, can you jump on? Like, can you make time? Also,
I'm happy to be here.
Dude, you're looking fresh. Like, we just signed with Roback again. You look,
we got some Roback on.
Creme de la creme, dude.
We're trying.
Unbelievable.
I appreciate that.
Let's go. Best in business, Pete Nakos. Thanks for making time, brother.
You bet, man.
Cool. I'll see you out in the office.
Yeah.
Let's go. This is awesome. This is awesome. Pete Nakos making time. So stoked he's here in Nashville. Also, big-time play by Nick Brake, getting this whole – and Trey Yannon, getting this whole setup. Because, I mean, this doesn't just, I mean, you don't just snap your fingers and get a nice two-shot right there behind the monitor. So really appreciate all they're doing, making this whole thing go. Crazy times in college football, man. Crazy. And it felt a little bit like when you had Boise State and Oregon playing that contest this past Saturday. It kind of had a little remnant of Pac-12 After Dark, but it wasn't the same. Now, actually, like we're gonna see Boise State as a Pac-12 team, and that is, I mean, just feels right. It feels right. And I know that change is something that, quite honestly, on this show we've been a little bit resistant to. Like we enjoy the nostalgia of college football, the tradition, the pageantry, but like as much as I'm against conference realignment, as much as I'm against conference realignment news, this one today, I'm not gonna lie to you, it felt good. It felt good seeing the Pac-12 get one, and just like Kevin from The Office, that one scene where he goes, you know what, things got pretty dark there for a while. It's just nice to win one. That's how it feels for the Pac-12. So we appreciate y'all that are tuned in live. Make sure you're subscribed to the On3 YouTube channel if you're dialed in. College football doesn't stop. Realignment, portal, recruiting. I mean, praise the Lord, we got the actual season right now, so lock in for that, and appreciate y'all being subscribed. All right. So let's talk about this here, because I think this is important. It's kind of, it's not doom and gloom. It's more so just like, let's have an honest conversation. All right. What's at stake for Florida against Texas A&M this Saturday? Maybe more importantly, what's at stake for Billy Napier this Saturday? Now, if you have been tuned into this show during this week, you know that I think this season is still about winning. Like, I know that the DJ Lagway train is off and rolling, and like I'm excited about that. I think DJ Lagway is going to be extremely special throughout his college career. Again, though, I think the 6-year guy, Graham Mertz, probably gives you the best chance to win football games. Clearly, Billy Napier felt that way when he made him the starter, when he got to Gainesville and kept him the starter over the spring and the fall. Like, it's pretty straightforward here. However, and that's not me knocking DJ Lagway, just so we're on the same page. I think he's going to have a tremendous, tremendous career. However, this year is still about winning football games. And I think against Texas A&M, it is hard to overstate the impact of the result of this game. Maybe more importantly, the optics of this game. Because there was a lot of talk going into this season around the win total that Florida had to get to. Like I said on this show, I think 7, your job is safe if you're Billy Napier. I think if it's 6, probably has to be the right 6, probably has to be the right looking 6. I think the right looking 6 would be a win over Texas A&M any way you can get it. All right? Now, I picked Florida in this football game over Texas A&M. Picked them to win, picked them to respond in a big way at home, picked them to play for Billy Napier, but let's just be honest right now. The loss to Miami, and not just that they lost, not just that it was at home, it was the way in which they lost that made the conversation around Billy Napier's job and the optics for Florida very, very vulnerable. Okay, now I'm not saying that if he loses this game and Texas A&M walks it off on a 3-point field goal, he's fired. I'm not saying that. But I do say that the way they looked against Miami, if they repeat that against A&M at the crib, where they look undisciplined, they don't, quite frankly, look like they are matching the physicality or the intensity of the opponent. If they look like they're misaligned, they look like they don't have answers. Like, if we see that version of Florida meet Texas A&M and they just look overwhelmed, I get worried. Now, I'm not calling for his job. I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all, but I am saying if that happens again, I get worried. Because if I'm Florida, or just in life, the last thing that you want to be is the last person to know. Right? Like, if they look that way against A&M, I think the college football public, all of us, we kind of know where this thing is headed, right? To look overwhelmed by a first-year Mike Elko at Texas A&M at home doesn't get easier. You got Tennessee still. You got Georgia still. You got Texas still. This is supposed to be the workable part of it. This is supposed to be like the part of the schedule where you find some wins and get some momentum, some belief. And so if you just get your stuff rocked at the crib again, I think we kind of know. I think we kind of have a gauge for this, okay? So I'm not saying they should fire him, but I am saying, like, that's some information now that I think would be very difficult to deal with. And I also think if you're Florida, you would much rather be proactive than reactive, right? Like, you would much rather make a move or make some kind of decision to help your football team throughout the rest of your season than just sit there and say, wait for it. Hey, it's about to get better. And then you're like, hey, man, everybody's seeing what's happening right now. Everybody has eyeballs. Everybody just watched Texas A&M whoop Florida. If that's the case, you're like, hey, let's have a discussion about where this thing is really headed. Now, I will also like to see this. I don't know what's going on within that building. I don't have the insight to all those conversations that Billy Napier is having with the powers that be at Florida and the expectations and all those things. I do know that Florida, with that brand and what that team has, what that program has been historically, they expect great things. Maybe not this season, and that in itself is kind of a conversation to have, but like they expect to compete for conference titles. They expect to compete for national titles. Right now, it's not where you're at. Is it going somewhere? And if you look overwhelmed against A&M, it's hard for me to confidently say this is going somewhere. If it was year one, different story. It's year 3. I know it's the SEC. I know they did not walk into a furnished apartment. Like this thing had some holes in it. They had to, I think, fight a little bit to get back to neutral. But if you can't do it by the 3rd year against a team like Texas A&M in their first year, say what you want about the roster, I just think that's something to be discussed. Now, as much as we talk about like the doom and gloom and all the bad things that could happen, like let's have this conversation too. If Florida responds the way that I am predicting they respond, and Florida comes out swinging, they beat the brakes off Texas A&M. One, you look back at that Miami game and say, whoa, okay, how good is Miami? That's first off. Second, I think you look at the rest of your schedule, you say, okay, hey, we're not, too far off track here. Like, we got to win the games we're supposed to win here. We got to beat Mississippi State, got to beat UCF. But again, confidence, momentum, belief internally, like that's what I would really be excited about capturing if you can beat A&M. And let's just be real here, A&M did not look like a juggernaut when they played Notre Dame. And I'm not really big into the transitive property because I think college football and the volatility of it and the fact that you got 18 and 22-year-olds playing the sport is what makes it so beautiful and so fun because anything can happen. But I do think that Notre Dame loss hasn't exactly aged well. Shouts to NIU. This is a massive game. Massive, massive game. Optically, I think when it comes to how Florida plays overall, that has to be the thing we look at in this game. All I want to see is Florida look like the team we expected them to look like going into this season. And that expectation was not based in like, hey, like all this rah-rah hype, hype video stuff. Like this expectation was based off of how they finished last year, fighting tooth and nail in a lot of games against good football teams. Like Graham Mertz stays healthy, they beat Missouri. I don't think that's a stretch. If Graham Mertz is healthy, Florida State and all the injuries they had, maybe Florida finds a way to win that game. Like, I'm not basing this in just like, I hope Florida's able to win games for Billy Napier's job. I'm basing this in what we saw at the end of last season. And by using some logic, you would hope would impact the locker room and impact the roster in a positive way with the entire world telling you what you can't do. So, again, I'm not calling for his job. I would love to see Billy. I predicted Billy Napier to finish out the season at Florida, have success, make a bowl game. But let's be clear here. If they look the way they looked against Miami, against Texas A&M, there will be some uncomfortable vibes in Gainesville, and we'll have more uncomfortable conversations here going forward on this very show about Florida. So just making sure we're on the same page there. Again, I am a fan of Billy Napier. I'm a fan of the way that he operates. I'm a fan of the way that he's just done his best to shut out that noise. But just making sure we have a very real conversation about what hangs in the balance Saturday in Gainesville against Texas A&M. All right? So we do our best to not overreact, but I think it's important we have that conversation now. I think it's important. Now, speaking of not overreacting, y'all, I'm close. I'm very, very close to overreacting because I think Tennessee looks a whole lot like a playoff team. And the reason why we're doing this segment is because I don't think it is an overreaction. The reason why? I think they have all the pieces. We'll talk about that right now, but first things first, make sure you're subscribed right here to the On3 YouTube channel. If you're watching live, you're a real one. We love you. You're a person of the program. We thank you for that. If you're listening on podcast, same exact deal. We appreciate you being dialed in, for doing the grit work to be able to listen to this show when you don't have time to make it live, so we thank you so much for that. Regardless of how you listen, just go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Whether it's on YouTube if you're watching there or if you're listening via podcast, just subscribe. It helps us keep track of who's a part of this college football sicko community. It helps us do more of the content you want to see. All right? So, as I was saying, Tennessee looks like a playoff team to me. Famous last words coming out of week 2, heading into week 3. I absolutely still need to see Nico in a true road spot. All right? There's no way around that. But with that being said, you see a lot of the pieces in this team that would equate to a college football playoff team. Like, I think once you have the proper ingredients, yes, it's fair to expect a certain result. If I got the pieces to make a tremendous burger, I got the best cheese, I got these great this great kind of like ground beef to make, I got all the spice. Like, if you have everything you need, you expect the results. From what I can tell so far at Tennessee, I think you have everything you need. And we'll start with Nico, man, because I think he epitomizes that. He has all of the tools and then some to be able to make this thing hum. And you've seen it so far. He can spray it around the yard. There's a reason why he was the #1 recruit in America when he came out of high school. There's a reason for that. Not #1 quarterback, #1 player in America for us here at On 3. Okay? Dude's got some arm talent. But also, I've said this ad nauseum now, so if you're just tuning in, welcome. He has the mobility to, I think, take you to the next version of what this Josh Heupel offense would like to be. Like, a lot of what Josh Heupel does formationally forces the defense to make choices. Do we want to play the run or do we want to play the pass? Because guess what? Your outside linebacker cannot cover 25 yards of width of the field. Just can't do it. All right, so what do you want him to do? You want to play the pass? Not a bad choice. But when you do that now, just make sure you understand we have an extra blocker for design quarterback run game for Nico. That's why you saw him rip off a 30-yarder for a touchdown against NC State. So the mobility he has there in the quarterback design run game and the ad-libs and all that stuff, again, we've talked about a lot. But here's one thing that keeps getting overlooked. Remember last year where the offense wasn't exactly humming how you would have expected it to hum? Because you're coming off of 2022 and Joe Milton's doing backflips and throwing the ball 90 yards. Like, you're seeing all the ability there that he has. And then you're like, well, it doesn't look how we want it to look offensively. Is it time for Nico? There are a lot of folks saying that. Hey, is it time to give Aid a shot? What you're seeing right now is the dividends of patience. What you're seeing right now from Nico Iamaleava to this point in the year is the dividends of him getting to redshirt. Okay, if you threw him in last year, excuse me, if you threw him in the game last year and made him your guy and make him have to carry this Tennessee offense, one, I don't think he had the weapons to allow him to have the success he's having now. That's first off. Second, this is a tough offense to operate. Like, say what you want about what they asked the quarterback to not do compared to like a pro-style offense. Like, that's another discussion. To run this offense at the tempo they want it run, there's no margin for hiccups. There's no margin for your quarterback to be thinking a whole lot and saying, oh, well, what coverage is this? What do I like? What picture? What play? No, like, you got to go, okay? Like, you got to be able to whip this Ferrari. There's no driving 65 in the middle of the highway. And so Nico getting a full year to develop physically, to be able to learn the system, learn the offense, like, that is massive, and you're seeing that right now. You would have not seen Nico Iamaleava have the success he's having now a season ago without the red shirt, without the chance to learn behind a Joe Milton. So let's be clear now. You're seeing the benefit for him of the red shirt, I believe, so far in this point in the season. Now, as much as we talk about the offense, man, I'm glad the defense is getting some shine right now because I think now for the first time under Josh Heupel, it looks like to me you have a defense that matches what you have on offense. Because the offense was always something you got excited about. You always felt pretty good about with Josh Heupel running the show. Even last year, we talked about Joe Milton and what they didn't do. Like, still scored over 30 points a game. Okay, like, that's going to be good enough in a lot of situations. But to me, it's very clear defensively. You know, the personnel is one thing. They're probably like 12 to 13 deep in that front seven on that defensive line. That's massive. But to me, like, the clear standard that's been set defensively, that is now, I think, solidified itself across the board for this Tennessee football team. It's very, very evident the way that they play on that side of the ball. Like, the standard is we run the football, we arrive with physicality and violence, we swarm. Like, when one person grabs a hold of the ball carrier, we all show up in full force. I say this a lot, but like, the temperature of a defense, to me, jumps out very, very quickly. We saw it with USC in that first game against LSU. Wildly different. I think we saw it for LSU, too, in that first game. Even though they got diced up on the back end, like, I think we saw some improved temperature from them. But the thing for me with Tennessee, you saw that jump off of the broadcast against NC State. That's not something that's always been there for Tennessee. And that's not me knocking what they have had previously. I think it's more so praise to the way that Josh Heupel has set the standard, the way that his staff set the standard, and the way they've built to this now. Like, that front seven, I keep saying it, 13 tackles for a loss, y'all, does not happen on accident. You rep that. You solidify and instill that culture in your defense. And we're seeing it right now. So what that means for Tennessee in terms of the playoff, it means that you don't have to lean on your offense quite as much as you have previously. It means you don't have to score 45, okay, to win a football game. It means you can get in a rock fight with an Alabama, with a Georgia, if it ends up being that way, and feel like, okay, hey, if we punt here, that's okay. It didn't feel that way in 2022. It felt like in 2022, hey, you punt, all right, we got to find a way to probably steal a possession here and find a way to match whatever score we're about to have on us. That's not the case anymore for Tennessee. And so I said it before, like schedule-wise, I think it's 10-2 is what it has to be. You got Georgia, you got Bama. Those are the two where from a roster perspective, I think there's still some talent gap with how they've recruited. Now, to the same exact token, like there was probably a talent gap in 2022. Didn't matter. Why? Because the matchups that Josh Heupel created were the difference. So again, if 10-2 is the price of admission to the college football playoff, which I believe it is for an SEC team, I think they have what it takes. I truly do. But I think it's also worth noting now the way that Tennessee plays on both sides of the football. We talk about leadership and persona and how that impacts a football team. Like the structure Josh Heupel has put in place. Whenever you watch Tennessee play, I don't see a lot of guys checking their feet. I don't see a lot of second-guessing themselves. I see a lot of dudes walk out there, know their assignment. That's first and most important thing. But also, they seem very comfortable pulling the trigger. Like when it's time to make a play, they're good for it. They're ready to roll. Throw the chips, let them fall where they may, let's go. To me, that is like a non-negotiable when it comes to DNA traits to being a college football playoff team. I know it's week 2. I know it's Chattanooga. I know it's NC State. I know NC State has not looked all that impressive so far this year with the way they messed around with Western Carolina that first game of the season. I get it. We're going to learn a lot more at Oklahoma. I understand that. But I just want to make sure we're on record here. I see all the ingredients from the quarterback to the defense to the mentality to the temperature, all those things now. I see Tennessee. I see a college football playoff team. Feel very fine leaning into that. I think that's the case. Cannot wait to see what they do the rest of the year because I really think now for Nico too, I think his best football is still ahead of him. You would hope so too. Only 3 starts into his career. So that's how I feel about that. All right, I want to do a quick game prediction here. We don't typically do these on a Thursday, but I had this feeling in my gut. All right, I had this feeling in my gut, and the way this game went last year too, we probably need to discuss it. The Rocky Mountain Showdown, 7:30 Eastern. You got Colorado favored by 7.5 points. Going to Colorado State, all right? So a little in-state rival there. There's been some cash talked around this game, okay? Colorado State did the same thing last year with Jay Norvell, talking about how he handles himself when he speaks to grown-ups, taking off his hat and sunglasses, said what he said, made it a close game. Colorado won. It is what it is. Colorado looking to bounce back from a lackluster showing against Nebraska, okay? So there's definitely a lot of I love early rivalries, full transparency. Rivalries before rivalry weekend just kind of feel like a little appetizer to hold us over until we get to rivalry weekend. Not that we really need to be held over too much because it's college football, but go back to what I was saying. Last year, 35-43 was the final score in Boulder. Now, both these teams return right around 70% production from those teams a season ago. So it's not all that different rosters, even though there's a lot of new faces, not all that different rosters from a production standpoint. My question here from the jump, man, is like, where's Colorado's psyche at right now? And that's not me, I don't think, making anything up when I ask that question. Like, we saw Colorado last year start out 3-0 and then lose 8 of their last 9. Like, losing last year really impacted Colorado. They had a tough time, quite frankly, getting up off the mat after that Stanford game. I don't think that's a stretch. Also, watching the Nebraska game, I think all of us saw the same thing. I did not see a team that really handled losing all that well, and I'm fine with that, just so we're on the same page. Like, I'm cool with being bitter about losing. You don't have to like losing. You don't accept losing. Nobody that I know that actually is successful in life is a good loser. All right, that's first off. But I saw a lot of things that concern me when you talk about body language, talk about demeanor on the sideline. The whole Shedeur Sanders thing after the game with his post-game comments about, the rookie mistake and stuff. I don't want to blow that out of proportion, but I will say this. Asking the reporter, how many times did Dylan Raiola get hit during the game? If I'm an offensive lineman, I definitely hear that. I'll just say, you hear that, okay? I don't want to extrapolate too much from that, but you hear that. So again, if they can flush it, Colorado from a roster perspective, I believe has way too much talent. They should roll in this game. Okay? Now, it's not a prediction just yet, but I'm just saying, like, if they can hit the reset, if they're answering this question with, hey, our psyche is more than good to go, let's roll, they may blow Colorado State out at home. And think about the way that would just jumpstart this team overall. Hit the reset button, you're back on track. I think a bowl game is what you're after this year in Colorado. Like, Travis Hunter last year also in this game, let's make sure we say this, basically didn't play. Got hurt early on, and I think he very much so could have changed the outcome of that game very, very early on, and is a massive weapon for Colorado to have, very clearly. Now, so much of the talk around this game and around Colorado in general is like, hey, the line of scrimmage, can they protect Shedeur? Can they run the football? Can they be balanced? But, like, I think that the question we got to ask around Colorado's defense isn't so much stopping the run or Colorado on the offensive line protecting Shedeur. That's important. The matchup I'm watching most closely is what does Colorado do in the secondary? Now, we'll see if he plays or not. As of right now, there's not a clear answer on if Torrey Horton will be playing for Colorado State. Torrey Horton lit it up last year in this game. 16 receptions, 133 yards. He was Braden Fowler Nicolosi's go-to guy. Now, again, he's a little bit dinged up, so we'll see what his, impact is and if he's able to play. But, like, it was very obvious. They were feeding him the football, especially underneath. It was a lot of get him the ball in space, let him get north and south. And Colorado, quite frankly, did not have an answer for that. Also, with Shiloh Sanders not playing in this game, starting safety for Colorado, that's going to be something to watch even more closely if Torrey Horton is able to go. Now, if Torrey Horton can't go, again, Colorado, we'll say it again, they may be able to roll in this one. But with that being said, I want to have a few things we talk about with this game. I don't think that you slow down Travis Hunter. Like his prize picks number right now, Travis Hunter, his receiving total is set to 95.5 receiving yards. Use code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups, gets you $50 in promo funds when you use code HARDCOUNT at prizepicks.com. I would take the more for Travis Hunter there and feel great about it. Like he's a go-to guy for Colorado. They're going to feed him the football consistently. Even if Colorado is in a dogfight, Travis Hunter, I think, will hit the more on that total. I would also pair that square of Travis Hunter on the more with his receiving total with a free Caleb Williams square. All September now, Prize Picks, if Caleb Williams hits more than a half a passing yard, that hits. So go ahead and put those two together and feel good about it using code HARDCOUNT. But again, the thing that makes me nervous about Colorado is how one-dimensional they've looked to this point. I worry about their psyche. I really do. I really do. Now, people may say, well, hey, Colorado State's giving them all the ammunition they need and then some with how they're talking about them right now. Like there's a clip going around right now, Torrey Horton and the quarterback Braden Fowler Nicolosi from Colorado State essentially saying like, hey, we should have beat them last year. Nicolosi is saying we'll see how far Instagram followers really gets them. Like they are feeding into the rivalry that this is, okay? And like, again, Colorado and Colorado State, they're going to talk, and it's fine. I'm cool with that, honestly, because at the end of the day, you got to back it up on the field. Like, this is kind of a tangent, but like even Shiloh Sanders before the Nebraska game saying, we're about to roll y'all. Y'all know we're about to roll y'all. Like, I don't have an issue with that because Shiloh Sanders is about to go play the game. So, like, you're cool to talk, and I don't even have an issue of, like, can you back it up or not? Talk your talk because at some point in time, you have to actually play the game, and so I'm great with it. But with that being said, the one-dimensional nature of Colorado right now and them coming off that loss and with it at Colorado State, I don't feel good about picking Colorado the team. I feel good about picking the roster. I think Colorado, the roster, is better than Colorado State. But we're talking about picking a team. I'm going to pick Colorado State to win at home. I think the final score is 31-24. I think it's back and forth. I don't think that either side blows the other out unless Colorado decides to hit the reset button and play great offensively. And, like, that's the end of the day there. Definitely possible. But, again, I'm picking Colorado State. I think they win by a touchdown. And I cannot wait to see how it plays out. Regardless, should be a great game, and I'm fired up for it. So it'll be a lot of fun. All right. Well, let's get to this now. Every single Thursday we do this. So quick call to action. If you're watching live, go ahead and get in the live chat. Let me know your final take before we jump into week 3 of the college football season. We do a lot of content on this show. We'll have more content that comes out from the YouTube channel that we don't do on the live show. We'll have more content on my socials at JD Piquel. But, like, this is kind of like our last chance to have a discussion with you during a live capacity and give you our final take. So I will say this too. We have a Prize Picks play a little bit later in this segment. So here's a quick read for you. Prize Picks, if you don't know, they're bringing you the hard count this year, and we're fired up about it. Use code HARDCOUNT when you play a $5 lineup. Gets you $50 in promo funds. And y'all have done a great job supporting this show with Prize Picks using that code, so we thank you for that. If you want to support the show, use that code when you sign up, and it helps us. It helps us get the show to more people, so we appreciate you for that. Again, Caleb Williams, free square, half a passing yard all September. So go ahead and lock that in, and we'll have a good time. Again, another square a little bit later in this segment for you. So one of my final takes going into week 3, I think we see Alabama offensively open it up a little bit more because they've rolled the last couple of weeks in the box score. They didn't really roll so much against USF. Kind of took some extra juice, some extra fuel in that fourth quarter to pull away from USF. But like the first week against Western Kentucky, roll, score 63. End up scoring north of 40 against USF. But I still don't think we've seen the full bag from Kalen DeBoer, and that makes sense. Against those two teams, you're probably not going to be too complex to show too much because, again, you do play Georgia here in a few weeks. But I think against Wisconsin, with them being on the road, with it being a Big Ten team that brings back 70% production from last year's defense that was really solid, allowed right around 20 points a game, like I think this is the spot now where we see Kalen DeBoer not show everything, but I think he does give you one of these like, hey, here's maybe just a little appetizer. Something for Georgia to work with on film. Something for LSU to work with on film. Like, I think we see them be a little bit more complex. Again, not the full range, but I think we see him go in the bag a little bit. I expect Jalen Milroe to have a massive day against Wisconsin. Stay tuned for more thoughts on him on the On3 YouTube channel. We'll have some Prize Picks content there, but I think Alabama kind of revs the engine a little bit offensively. It won't be so vanilla. It'll be a little more vanilla with like some caramel drizzled on there, maybe some Heath bar, maybe some M&Ms. Like you kind of get a little more complex this week if you're Alabama on offense. Now, I had a full segment about this earlier on in this show. We'll have that segment cut for you out on the YouTube channel, so go check it out. But like I think this is the week now we see Florida bow up a little bit. And honestly, like some of this is hoping Florida bows up because like if not now, then when? Because I expected them to look a certain way against Miami, saw no trace of them. I think now with everything said about your head coach, with all the conversation around what this team wouldn't accomplish this upcoming season, like I think this is the game now. We see Florida snap back into it. You're at home. I'm excited to see how they look against Texas A&M because I think overall they'll look much more like a year 3 outfit. I think they'll be much more disciplined, and I think they'll play with some fire for Billy Napier. I really do. We saw that last year multiple times, the way they pushed Missouri, the way they pushed Florida State, the way they came back in South Carolina. Like I think we're going to see them really kind of play with a little bit more juice, and I think we see them beat Texas A&M. So final thought, Florida looks like the Florida team we thought we would see against Miami when they play Texas A&M. Now here's the Prize Picks play for you. I think Garrett Nussmeier and Kyron Lacey are about to be essentially like that picture you see going around social media whenever it's like LeBron and Dwayne Wade with the alley-oop. Like Dwayne Wade's doing this, LeBron's back there just throwing back a tomahawk dunk. That is Kyron Lacey and Garrett Nussmeier this week. I don't trust the South Carolina secondary just yet. I like them. I like what they did against Kentucky. Don't get it twisted. They looked awesome against Kentucky. But I think with how good Kyron Lacey is and how much they're going to make a point to feed him the football, this is the week where you see a little run game early from LSU, kind of isolate some matchups on the perimeter, and then by the second half, like I think Kyron Lacey has a massive day. I think he has over 100 yards receiving. Wouldn't be surprised if he had multiple touchdowns. So the Prize Picks play for us here. Again, code HARDCOUNT, $5 in lineups, $50 in promo funds. Lock in now with us. His number is 73.5 receiving yards. Take the more there. Pair it with the Caleb Williams free square of more than half a passing yard. Redeem code HARDCOUNT and just count it up afterwards, all right, is what I'm trying to say there. So I don't think anyone can stick with him, and I think he has a massive day. Now here's a couple more like macro takes, if you will. Not so much team specific, but more so like the sport specific. And I thought about doing a segment like this to start the show, but with the Pac-12 news, it just seemed like maybe we should check some other boxes, and maybe we'll do a segment like this early on next week. But like, I just think we have to realize now that we cannot use old rules in college football to assess the new game that college football is. And I'm not talking about specific rules with targeting. I'm talking about like a lot of teams now across the landscape, we're just counting out of the whole college football playoff conversation. Like we're just leaving some of these teams for dead after a loss. Those are the old rules that apply to the BCS. Those are the old rules that in some way apply to the college football playoff 4-team model. It does not apply to the 12-team model. Like Michigan, they are not dead. They got to fix the offense. Don't get it twisted. They got to figure it out on offense, but like they're not left for dead. Same thing with Clemson. Are they on Georgia's level? No, absolutely not. Scoreboard proves that. Are they a team that could still win the ACC? Y'all know I love Syracuse. All right, I'm high on Syracuse. I mean, they're our team. We've adopted on this show. Love Miami. Clemson can give any of those guys a game, I think. Should they find them in the last game of the season in the conference title game? Clemson, don't leave them for dead. LSU, they lost to USC, soft West Coast team. I don't know. I've seen Brian Kelly lose a couple openers now, and his team still finishes winning 10 football games. I wouldn't leave them for dead. So what I'm trying to say here is Notre Dame is the same thing. They got to play better against NIU. That's pretty straightforward. They have to bring more to the table than they did on that Saturday. Are they done? 11-1 Notre Dame gets in. I'll just say that right now. So let's not leave these teams for dead. Do they have to play better? Of course. Is what they've shown so far inspiring? No. But are they out of the race? Are they just dead? Should they be left for dead? Absolutely not. Got to retrain our brains there a little bit. Last thing I'll say here, going back to what I was getting at with the Colorado State-Colorado game, there's so much said around NIL and the portal and the way we have professionalized college football. And if you know me, I think NIL is a good thing. I think the portal is a good thing. But let's not pretend that culture doesn't matter anymore in college football. People will be very quick to say, well, hey, JD, Ole Miss, Lane Kiffin, the way that he goes to the portal, you think he's having a culture conversation with his football team? I'll say this. We talked to Jackson Dart at SEC Media Days, and their culture may not be the same as like, you know, again, I'm not in the building there, so it may not have the same like lock arms, you know, fuzzy feelings and all those vibes, but there is the culture of pro mindset. I do my job. Sounds like kind of the same thing that those Bama teams would say, right? Like that's kind of the same approach there, same culture of accountability, right? Be a professional. That's Ole Miss's culture. So as much as we talk about the new college football, culture, I believe, still wins in college football. You will not see a team hoist the national championship just because they have the best players. Might help, might get them in the dance, might get them in the door, but like culture, I still believe, is ultimately what allows you to win at the highest level. Talent, non-negotiable. But if you want to win the whole deal, culture still wins in college football. And you're seeing that now week in and week out with these teams having to play their best games and avoiding letdowns. Culture is also massive in that as well. Hey, what a week now. What a week. Big week on this show, man. We're so glad to have y'all a part of this. So glad that y'all are choosing to spend your college football weekends, your Saturdays, your Sundays, your Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right here on this show, 11 a.m. Eastern with us. We appreciate it tremendously. And, y'all, we don't take this for granted for a second. So before we get to the end of this thing, got a couple of ad reads for you here. I want to start with game time, man. There's a lot of big games ahead of us here this upcoming weekend. Some of you now, I know this. You're right on the fence. Hey, maybe I want to go to Florida, Texas A&M, but I don't know. I don't know if I can find a ticket I like. I don't know if I can find it for the right price. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. All right, Game Time, make sure you get the best prices and the best seats for what it should be paid for, all right? Best view. The one thing I love about the app, I say this a lot, you can see your view from your seat before you purchase. All right, so you're not going to be sitting behind the Jumbotron. You're not going to be sitting behind some random, concrete pole that's in front of your view of the actual field. That won't happen to you because you can check before you buy the ticket. All right, also, like I said, best price. If you find a ticket in the same section and row for less than what you paid for on Game Time on another platform, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. All right, so take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets, out of buying concert tickets, out of buying whatever kind of ticket you want to buy with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code HARDCOUNT for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Create an account, Redeem code HARDCOUNT for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. All right, so make sure you lock in with them. They're going to take care of y'all. Also, we said this last couple of shows, but another quick PSA for y'all. The Money Game is out this week over on Prime Video, exclusively on Prime Video. I'd recommend going and checking this out. Compelling 6-part docuseries that chronicles the introduction of the groundbreaking decision by the NCAA to grant name, image, and likeness rights to student athletes, permitting them for the first time ever to earn endorsement compensation while maintaining their amateur athletic status. So essentially, NIL is a new thing. This docuseries gives you a tremendous view into what that's like for some of these athletes. Some of these athletes that are high profile as well. Provides all-access pass inside LFU athletics. Docuseries will examine the impact of NIL rights on college athletes as seen through some of the top athletes at LSU. So you got Angel Reese in there. You got Livy Dunn in there. You got Jaden Daniels in there. Really insightful. Go check it out. Again, on Prime Video. Would encourage you to watch that. The Money Game, okay? Already out from executive producer and LSU alum Shaquille O'Neal. So The Money Game is out now. Would encourage you to go check that out and let us know what you think. I mean, I cannot wait to get a good gauge for Jaden Daniels and his experience with NIL because he was a guy that totally just blew up in a massive way. He was already a figure in college football, but the way that he just took it to the next level, unreal, and have to imagine his NIL experience was unique, to say the least, at LSU. So, again, we appreciate y'all being a part of this, man. College football season is here, the best part of the year, and it's a beautiful thing. So cherish it, enjoy it, soak it all in, man, because in a few weeks now, I'm not going to say that, in a few months, not too long, we'll be right back here saying, wow, college football season was incredible, right? It's right around the corner yet again, and we're in it right now. We're in the belly of the beast. Cherish it, enjoy it. Tell someone you love them. Tell your mom you love them. Tell your family you love them. And we'll have a tremendous college football weekend. Nick Break on the ones and twos. For myself, JD Pickell, we appreciate y'all. We love y'all. We're going to keep this party rolling. We will see y'all next time.